Welcome to the Health on Track podcast. Let's talk well-being.
Welcome to the Health on Track podcast, your regular shot of wellness. I'm Sabah, the Partnership and Wellbeing Manager at GIG Gulf Insurance. It's back to school season, and we all know what that usually brings, the flu. As children return to classrooms, their exposure to germs increases, and so do infections. But don't worry, this episode is here to help. We're focusing on strengthening your child's immune system so they can stay healthier through the school year. Joining us today is Ms. Carolyn Wielding, a pediatric nutritionist at King's College Hospital, Dubai. With over 11 years of experience, Carolyn has worked extensively with children who have neurological and renal conditions, and she also supports long-term pediatric rehabilitation cases. Interestingly, Carolyn began her career as a professional chef before moving into healthcare, a journey that refined her practical approach to nutrition. She's also completing several advanced clinical courses in dietetics and nutrition. Carolyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's start with your unique background. So you began as a professional chef, and that's quite a transition. And what inspired you to move into pediatric nutrition?
So ultimately, I graduated and began to work in adults, and then I fell into a job in my hometown in Glasgow that involved pediatrics, and I just loved it. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you specialized in pediatric nutrition. How is that different from adult nutrition? And why it is important to focus specifically on children?
Yeah, so the way that I always explain it to parents is my job is to help them grow to the best of their ability. And the main difference between adults and children is that children need to grow. Yeah, adults don't. So you're constantly adapting and changing through the life cycle in periods of sickness, illness, and health. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're talking about illness and sickness. So let's go to the immunity side.
Yeah.
What role does nutrition play in strengthening a child's immune system?
Yeah, a huge part, like one of the most important parts, I feel, for a variety of cases. It's an old term, but we really are what we eat. And children's nutrition is variable, adaptable, and again, we need to make sure that they've got the strength to kind of fight any illnesses or diseases that they have going around.
And is there any specific foods that help with the to build immune system, strong immune system for children?
Yeah, so the absolute number one is breastfeeding. Straight out the womb, it's the best chance that the children can get from immunity. Breastfeeding rates, unfortunately, are very, very low. In the UK, where I'm from, I think at 6 months of age, breastfeeding rates are around 1%, which is really, really minimal. But it's the absolute best start for immunity for any child. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see a difference here between, as you have mentioned, in UK, the rate of breastfeeding is very low.
Yeah.
But here, I believe we have like plenty of baby-friendly hospitals that encourage the breastfeeding.
Yeah, absolutely, but I think it's what happens when it goes home. You know, rates here are still very low for a variety of reasons. You know, the maternity leave is not that long. Mums will tend to go to work much quicker, and for different stressors, working hours, care at home, breastfeeding rates will drop. Yeah. And there are formulas out there, but they're absolutely no replacement for breast milk. The breast milk is filled with loads of immunological factors and things that aren't even related to nutrition that populate the gut and keep that child healthy for the rest of their life, really. Yeah.
Moving to the next stage, in terms of food elements, what type of foods like do you recommend to introduce first to the babies and then to later stage that it will help boosting their immunity system?
Yeah, so it's a really exciting age. I love it when we get kids in clinic that are beginning to orally feed. So from the age of 6 months onward, that's when we would be introducing all the foods from the different food groups. Typically, we would advise a wide range of fruits and vegetables, different types of carbohydrates and proteins, and it's really the variety and the texture that are key. I think healthy eating really has kind of got forgotten about, but it really is, again, along with breastfeeding, it's the number one key, again, that populates your gut and keeps you healthy for longer. So fruit and veg, appropriate intakes of carbohydrate, whole grains, good sources of fats, fluids. Again, we would be introducing them from 6 months of age, so that the children get used to the different types of food, and kind of that will, inshallah, help them follow it on for the rest of their life. Yeah.
Great. So you're encouraging a variety of healthy nutrients to be introduced in the kids' nutrition.
Absolutely. Minimum 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. Again, different types of whole grains, different types of good sources of protein. Really, it's the variety that's key from that young age, from 6 months, so that they're used to it when they get older.
Yeah. But you know, sometimes parents struggle to get their kids to eat fruits and vegetables. What strategies can help parents to do that?
Persistency. You know, again, from that age of like 6 months to 12, 6 to 12 months, the children are kind of just learning the part of their diet. The main part of their diet is either breast milk or formula milk. So persistency is key. Children, I think, through the generations, and will always refuse fruit and veg, but it's leading by example, having these foods available, having them at every single meal, and trying not to react when the kids don't want to eat it. Again, leading by example, eating these foods yourself, and just having them variety and having it accessible for them. Yeah.
And the other side, is there any food that may weaken the immune system for the child?
That's a really difficult question, actually. I think the evidence and what we know is that, like I said, whole foods, limiting very fast foods, sugary foods, these things that we don't really need in our diet. They're there for fun, they're there for convenience, they're there for social, but we know that a diet high in added salt, added sugar, really is of no benefit to the body and can cause a kind of pro-inflammatory state down the line. And also kind of increase rates of heart disease, diabetes, that again can dampen down the immune system.
Is immunity something we inherit?
Yeah.
Do you believe there is some children naturally more prone to illness than others?
Immunity is a huge topic that we could spend weeks talking about. Inherently, you know, the child, the baby from that first breastfeed will inherit part of their immunity from their mother, and that's designed, tailor-made for the child, yeah. In terms of children getting recurrent illnesses, that's it depends on the child. You know, I spend the majority of my working in hospitals, working with sick children, and they get recurrent illnesses for different reasons. Well, children that are at school getting common colds or flu or whatever, this is normal part of life, okay? I think a kind of red flag, and when I would become concerned, is if it is happening very frequently, but also if it's affecting their oral intake, which subsequently might affect their growth. Yeah, so that's why it would be important to be routinely seeing a pediatrician and to be making sure that the child is growing well, because ultimately their growth will be kind of an example of how they are and their overall health. Yeah.
For such children with low immunity system, do you recommend any types of supplements or vitamins?
Yeah, so we typically don't. Yeah, we really should be able to get all of the vitamins and minerals from the food that we're eating. There are certain cases where we would recommend supplements, and that's would typically be on assessment by myself or the pediatrician. I wouldn't supplement unless children were missing out whole food groups. I wouldn't supplement unless there was a known deficiency that we would have tested within the bloods. And I subsequently wouldn't randomly just take general multivitamins and minerals with the thought that it will give them more immunity, okay? Sometimes that can be detrimental. What we do know is that low levels of vitamin D, and this is for all the different age ranges, is linked to recurrent illnesses and kind of can affect the immune system. So routinely, we would encourage vitamin D supplements for the whole family. Yeah.
It's for a specific age, or it has to be continuously till like the teenager?
Yeah, so again, typically if a child is solely breastfed, we would add in vitamin D supplements for the mum and the baby. If a child is formula fed and taking roughly 600 mils of the formula, we wouldn't supplement because the vitamin D is in the formula. I would encourage all children up until 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old, to take it, and then we would monitor. I know we live in Dubai, but typically we're not in the sun that much. It's where vitamin D is processed. So again, all age ranges, I would encourage to keep getting tested because it is one of the, we know levels are low, and we know that that can be one of the issues with low immunity. Yeah.
So some people believe our immunity today is weaker than it was decades ago. Do you agree on that?
Probably not. I think we're just more aware of it now. I think in terms of like allergies and recurrent illnesses, people are focusing on it a little bit more. In terms of the differences, no, I'd probably not.
There's a lot of debate around antibiotics.
Yeah.
What's your take on giving antibiotics to children?
Yeah.
Do you think they support or harm their immunity system?
So again, like I spend the majority of my day working with sick children in hospital, and doctors don't give antibiotics unless there's a proper clinical reason. I think as a parent, you would be justified to ask what the reason is and why they need it. But absolutely, there are times when children need antibiotics, as of adults. The consequences of using antibiotics is it can disrupt your gut microbiome and all that kind of good bacteria that lives in your gut that help prevent, certain diseases and is linked to kind of overall health. But absolutely, we use them and we have to use them. Children can get sick quite quickly, and if we don't we don't fix what's going on, then they can get much, much sicker. So absolutely, I would use antibiotics, but I would question if your child needs antibiotics really frequently. And there's things that we can do. After periods of sickness, if a child is on antibiotics, we want to repopulate that good bacteria. Some probiotics potentially would work short term, but then I would be working with families again to kind of reintroduce regular healthy eating into the diet. Again, fiber, which we get in fruit and veg, whole grains, these are the carbohydrate sources that your gut bacteria feed off. So it's all about what's the clinical condition? Do they need the antibiotics? If yes, fine, take the treatment, and then monitor with your pediatrician. Yeah.
So, Ms. Carolyn, there is also a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah.
What are some common myths about nutrition and immunity that you'd like to debunk?
Well, number one, that you have to take lots of different supplements to kind of fight off immunity and keep yourself healthy. That's absolutely not true. We would be looking at a food first approach. Again, healthy eating is forgotten about. 5 a day is forgotten about. Eating healthy fats, minimizing sugar. These are all things that actually is quite boring and everybody's a little bit bored of listening to, but there's reasons behind it. Yeah, these are the foods that build up your immunity and build up the general health of the child.
So you always advise on getting the vitamins and supplements from the naturally ways, like vegetables, fruits.
Yeah.
It's like still always better than getting supplements and
Yeah,
vitamins,
absolutely.
yeah?
Because, it's a really unexplored area, actually. Fruits and veg and all the different kind of phytonutrients are in all these different plant products. They work together. Yeah. So taking an isolated vitamin or mineral, you're kind of missing out on other of the cofactors that can work against that. So absolutely, we would be looking what the child is eating, assessing their diet for what's missing, and then supplemented if needed. Yeah. So there's no magic bullet, no. Unfortunately, the wellness industry and the supplement industry probably would disagree, but, as a dietitian, we always kind of look at the science and look at what's evidence-based.
So before we wrap up, do you have any key advice or simple tips for parents to help them boost their children's immunity system?
So, number one, encourage as much plant products, fruit and veg, as a variety for as long as possible, and ensuring minimum that they have 5 portions a day. Number two, really, really avoiding kind of the more fast foods, adding sugar, adding fat to the diet, because children are lazy. They just want to eat the sugar. They want to have fun and they want to go and play. Yeah, but it can be a really tricky kind of habit to get into. Number three, keep an eye on your child's growth, become familiar with their growth charts, making sure that they're growing for both weight and height. Are they growing in proportion? And you know what? Any pediatrician will be able to help with that. And number four, I guess, have fun with your kids. Get them involved in cooking, get them chopping, get them peeling, have that family time around the table so that they know, when the meal times are, they can lead by example from their parents and really just kind of having that fun family time. Yeah.
Do you recommend that parents will have a schedule for meals for their kids? This will help?
100%. It's linked to everything. Typically, children have quite high energy requirements compared to adults, so they need frequent meals, 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks, to kind of make sure they're getting enough energy and protein to help them grow, And the best thing to do is to get them into a routine, not as quickly as possible, but from a young age as possible. Be guided by your child's appetite. They have really quite small stomachs if they're younger, and they're quite good at regulating their fluid intake, but also the amount of food that they're taking. So routine is absolutely key, and it's linked to everything. We tend to see the children that are more fussy don't tend to have a routine, because they kind of lead. They're the bosses. They eat when they want to eat. They have their snacks. They just relax and play. But I would build it into everything. With the kind of nursery children or the kind of toddler to age 5, we see a lot of fussy eating. Again, it can be stressful for parents at home. And again, you're thinking about immunity, you're thinking about nourishing the child, and trying to fit all these different food groups in. But again, what I would pull it back with families is to bring back that routine. If a child doesn't want to eat, or they're stressed, or they're not hungry, that's okay. It's going to be only a short time until they have another opportunity to eat, whether it be a snack or whether it be the evening meal. What's a good key is that a lot of the time, the children that are fussy at home, they will go to school and they're fine. Because at school they have really, socialize. They eat with their peers, but they also have really quite strict times for eating. They'll have their morning snack and then they'll have a lunch. If they don't eat khalas, they move on to the lessons, right? And that can be frustrating for parents because the school will report no issues, but then the children will come home and then, they're kicking off, they're not having their evening meals. But again, I would be leading by example, and I would be trying as much as possible to enforce set meal times. And again, we live like normal life, okay? Weekends are usually a little bit more relaxed, and that's fine, but they need to build that routine. It's absolutely key. Yeah.
Some parents are struggling with really poor eater kids. Sometimes they skip the meal and they will wait for the kid till they will feel hungry. But this moment will never come. So do you have any tips that would help them to overcome this challenge?
So again, fussy eating is a normal part of a child's development. If they skip a meal, if they skip a next meal, and if it's really happened very frequently, where you see that they're not gaining weight, they might have some nutritional deficiencies, and they're not growing in height, that's when it would be an issue. But for me, a child that weight is fine and they're growing and they are skipping meals, I would be looking at, again, number one, the routine. Number two, I'd be looking at portion sizes. Again, they don't have a huge appetite. Are what we offering them too much? Are they becoming overwhelmed? I'd be wondering what are meal times like? Are they stressful? Is mum and dad in the kitchen fighting? Do they have their phone? Are they distracted? Really, I would kind of come back to what is going on in that situation, because more often than not, yes, it's frustrating for the parents, and yes, it's difficult. But if you kind of strip it back, give them 20 to 30 minutes maximum at their meal times, and then again, build in routine, usually the child is all right. Yeah. And it's annoying, but
Yeah.
and stressful for the
You know,
parents.
some parents
Yeah.
will choose sometimes to take the kid to the park
Yeah.
and take the food with them
Yeah.
and try to feed them there,
Yeah.
or to put them some videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
So do you recommend this to
Yeah.
be like as part of this
Yeah.
routine?
No, I think in terms of like electronics, again, the children, well, they just want to play. They don't want to put any effort into eating, and they'll have the TV on, or they'll have YouTube, or whatever the kind of whatever is going on. But then they're not focusing on what they're eating. They're not kind of engaging in the moment, and they're not learning. Remember, pediatric or childhood feeding, a lot of it is about learning. And it's really important to, yes, there's going to be times, yeah, to go to the park and have lunch, that's lovely, yeah. But the minute you start kind of bribing your child at every meal, imagine how that snowballs. Yeah, and before you know it, the kid has got the power, and they will use that against the parents, you know, because they're manipulative. They want to have their snacks and watch TV and kind of not really put any effort to it. So yeah, it's frustrating, and it takes time, especially for the really fussy eaters that have got into such a routine. It does take time, and there's no quick fixes, but it's all about modeling behavior, leading by example, really kind of setting up that foundation for the child to carry through onto adulthood. But it's not easy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's always recommended to follow a consistent setup for
Yeah.
the meals
Yeah.
in terms of time, schedule, and the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing your insights with us. And it's been incredibly informative.
Thank you.
To all parents listening, we hope this episode helps you better understand how to support and strengthen your child's immune system. If you found this helpful, don't forget to share it with friends and family. You can find us on YouTube video and music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anghami, and Amazon Music. Until next time, stay well and keep thriving.